Indiana University recently put up a life-size bronze statue of radical sex researcher Alfred Kinsey to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Kinsey Institute at the college. Now, the flawed theory of childhood sexuality based on his unmonitored, unscientific research has paved the way for today's sex education taught in public schools. If you're unfamiliar with Alfred Kinsey, or if you've only heard the Hollywood sanitized version, part of some buried truth is that Kinsey and his associates performed their sex research on more than 300 children and infants, in addition to prostitutes and sex offenders. I'm David Fiorazzo, and this is Christ and Culture. Even a former director of the Kinsey Institute confessed that all of Kinsey's data concerning children and adolescents came from a single pedophile who kept a diary of his experiences with 317 pre-adolescent boys. John Bancroft said that one individual man had, quote, incredible numbers of sexual experiences on which he kept very careful notes, end quote. We'll get to that in a minute. Kinsey's promotion of sexual activity at any age laid the groundwork in the 1940s for the normalization of adultery, homosexuality, and the transgender movement today, and could logically lead to destigmatizing pedophilia. Now, people need to understand the facts, right? And the history about Kinsey that has been downplayed, denied, or whitewashed. In his attempt to measure the range of human sexuality, Alfred Kinsey included two alarming tables documenting pre-adolescent experiments in his 1948 book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male. Kinsey wrote that his findings were, quote, an important substantiation of the Freudian view of sexuality as a component that is present in the human animal from earliest infancy, end quote. So human beings aren't much different than animals, according to his warped worldview. According to author, researcher, historian, and educator Dr. Judith Reisman, Kinsey said his mission was to remove the Christian influence in America and eliminate the sexually repressive legacy of Judeo-Christianity. In her exhaustive study of Alfred Kinsey, Dr. Reisman went on to conclude, quote, in large measure, Dr. Kinsey's mission has been accomplished, mostly posthumously, by his legion of true believers, elitists who have systematically brainwashed their fellow intellectual elites to adopt Kinsey's pansexual, secular worldview and jettison the Judeo-Christian worldview upon which this country was founded and flourished. So, zoologist and sexologist Alfred Kinsey is referred to by some as the father of the sexual revolution in America. Now, it's true he likely inspired Playboy's Hugh Hefner, as well as the open, free love sexual rebellion of the 1960s. Others refer to Kinsey as the most influential bisexual pedophile and child molester in this nation's history. Kinsey's research was funded in part by the Rockefeller Foundation, there it is, which also funded Margaret Sanger's birth control efforts, as well as population control ideas today. In fact, Dr. Herman Muller, one of Kinsey's colleagues at Indiana University, was actually a member of the American Eugenics Society. Kinsey also believed the unbiblical idea that waiting to have sex, especially until getting married, was psychologically harmful. Early on, Kinsey reportedly conducted his research in the attic of his Bloomington, Indiana home. He truly inspired the future trend of pornography that has since destroyed countless lives, marriages, and families. But that's not how the liberal Democrat elites see it, or his sex work. Defended and honored by the left, Kinsey flew under the radar for decades, and yet he may be one of the most prolific groomers of the 20th century who somehow deceived people into thinking that his research was scientific. Naturally, Indiana's Kinsey Institute denies all controversial claims regarding fraud and sex experiments on children, boasting Kinsey's, quote, extraordinary legacy and his commitment to, quote, understanding humanity's sexual diversity. But what is known as Table 34 in Kinsey's aforementioned book, plus his 1953 book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Female, contains disturbing documentation of children's orgasms and have drawn concerns of child abuse. How was the data collected? Notations included the use of a stopwatch to record the orgasms of child subjects. Now, the evidence suggests Kinsey's so-called scientific research was in fact child molestation. Too harsh, maybe? What young child in the 1940s or any time would have given consent to such invasive and shocking experiments? Perhaps as bad, what parent could have allowed this to be done to their child? In part of the description to her 1990 book, Kinsey, Sex and Fraud, The Indoctrination of a People, Dr. Judith Reisman explained his surveys were done on a non-representative group, hundreds of sex offenders, prostitutes, prison inmates, and exhibitionists. Quote, because of this fraudulent research, Kinsey's brand of social science has led to one of the greatest hypocrisies of all time. The pretense of providing safe sex instructions to children, while in reality advancing Kinsey's agenda, including indulgence in high-risk lifestyles and behaviors, end quote. Think about what teenagers and very young children are being taught today in schools under the guise of health or sex education. Kinsey was truly a pioneer of perversion, the man who regarded humans as animals, yet is well respected today in colleges and universities and by the left in general. Now, understand that tragically, there may be no bigger and more damaging influence in America on sexual promiscuity, expression, and experimentation than Alfred Kinsey. Please share this before it's censored or taken down by haters of God who endorse sexual deviancy. God bless you and keep speaking the truth about things that matter.